My hands trembled as I held the phone to my ear, the promotion letter still warm in my other hand. The parking lot outside my office building was nearly empty, the evening shadows stretching long across the asphalt. I should have been celebrating. Instead, I was about to test the man I'd loved for 8 years. Joseph. My voice caught slightly as he picked up. What now, Maria? I'm watching the game with Dad. His tone was already irritated, dismissive in that way that had become so familiar lately. I took a deep breath, folding the promotion letter and sliding it into my purse. I need to tell you something. I got fired today. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. In that moment I held my breath, hoping against hope that my husband would offer comfort, support, anything that resembled love. Instead, his laugh was cold and sharp. That's good for you because you've been acting like you're better and bigger than someone else. But come to think of it, I won't have you become a liability in the house. Get another job. How do you expect me to pay bills and take care of my parents and siblings? The words hit me like physical blows. Each syllable carved deeper into my chest until I couldn't breathe. 8 years of marriage, and this was how little I meant to him. Joseph, Look, Maria, I don't have time for your drama right now. Figure it out. The line went dead. I sat in my car staring at the phone screen, my reflection ghost-like in the black surface. The promotion letter in my purse felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Senior Vice President of Operations. A 60% salary increase. Everything I'd worked for. And my husband had just shown me exactly what our marriage was worth. But Joseph didn't know something. He didn't know that I'd been recording our conversations for weeks, documenting every cruel word, every dismissive comment. He didn't know that I'd already spoken to a lawyer. And he certainly didn't know that his reaction to my fake firing had just sealed his fate. As I started my car, one thought burned bright in my mind. If Joseph wanted to see me fail, I'd give him a front row seat to his own destruction instead. My name is Maria Aiden, and until 6 months ago I thought I was living the perfect life. I'd built my career from nothing, starting as a junior analyst at Meridian Financial and clawing my way up through 12 years of 18-hour days and weekend sacrifices. My corner office on the 32nd floor overlooked the city skyline, and my salary supported not just Joseph and me but his entire family. That should have been my first red flag. When Joseph and I met in college, he was charming and ambitious. He talked about starting his own business, about being a provider, about building something together. But somewhere along the way, his ambition had curdled into entitlement, and his charm had twisted into manipulation. Maria, you're home late again, Jacqueline, my mother-in-law, called from the kitchen as I walked through the front door of our suburban home. She'd been living with us for 3 years now, ever since Joseph convinced me she needed temporary help after his father's retirement. Sorry, Jacqueline. Big presentation today. I set my briefcase down and loosened my blazer. The house smelled like her cooking, which would have been nice if she'd ever cooked for me. But Jacqueline's meals were always timed perfectly for when I was still at work. Joseph's in the den with his father and Angela, she said, not looking up from the stove. They're discussing Angela's wedding plans. She'll need help with the down payment for the venue. Of course she would. Angela, Joseph's younger sister, had been planning her dream wedding for 2 years now, and somehow every expense had become my responsibility. The engagement party, the bridal shower, the dress shopping trips to New York. My credit cards carried the weight of her fairy tale. I found them huddled around Joseph's laptop in the den, spreadsheets glowing on the screen. Isaac Tony, my father-in-law, looked up when I entered. Maria. Perfect timing. We were just calculating the wedding budget. Angela found this beautiful venue in the mountains, but it's a bit more than we initially planned. How much more? I asked, though I already dreaded the answer. Angela's eyes lit up. Only 15,000 more. It's going to be absolutely perfect, Maria. You should see the photos. 15,000. On top of the 30,000 I'd already committed to. I felt the familiar weight settling on my shoulders, the same weight that had been growing heavier every month for years. We can discuss it later, I said carefully. I need to change out of my work clothes. Actually, Joseph said, finally looking at me, we should talk about your work situation. Dad thinks you might be pushing too hard for that promotion. You know how corporate politics can be. Maybe it's time to consider stepping back, focusing more on family. The words hit me like ice water. I'd been working toward the senior VP position for 3 years. It was everything I'd sacrificed for, everything I'd earned. Stepping back. I repeated. Well, you're already providing so well for all of us, Isaac Tony said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Maybe it's time to enjoy the fruits of your labor instead of always chasing the next thing. I looked around the room at their faces. Joseph's casual dismissal. Angela's expectant smile. Isaac Tony's patronizing nod. Jacqueline had appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me with calculating eyes. They weren't my family. They were my dependents. And they wanted to keep me exactly where I was. Successful enough to fund their lives, but not so successful that I might realize I deserved better. That night, as I lay in bed next to Joseph, I made a decision. I was going to test them. All of them. I was going to find out exactly what I meant to the people I'd been supporting for years. I just never imagined how completely they would fail that test. Before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. Your support helps us bring even more epic revenge tales of life. Enjoy listening. The promotion meeting was scheduled for Thursday morning. I'd been preparing for weeks, rehearsing my presentation, gathering testimonials from clients, documenting every success I'd achieved for the company. My supervisor, Rebecca Martinez, had already hinted that the position was mine. You've earned this, Maria, she'd said during our last one-on-one. Your revenue numbers speak for themselves. But as I sat in the conference room that Thursday watching the executives review my portfolio, I wasn't thinking about the promotion. I was thinking about the conversation I'd overheard the night before. Joseph had been on the phone with his brother Giovanni, who lived across the country. I'd been in the bathroom getting ready for bed, when their voices carried through the thin walls. She's getting too big for her britches, Joseph had said. Always talking about work, always stressed about some deadline. I think the money's going to her head. Maybe it's time to remind her what's important, Giovanni had replied. Family comes first, right? Exactly. I've been thinking about having another kid. That would keep her grounded, focused on what really matters. Another kid. We talked about children before, but I'd always said I wanted to wait until my career was more stable. Joseph had seemed to understand. But apparently he'd been planning to make that decision for me. Maria. Rebecca's voice brought me back to the present. The board has made their decision. I straightened in my chair, forcing myself to focus. Congratulations. You're our new senior vice president of operations. The room erupted in applause, but it felt distant, muffled. I smiled and shook hands and accepted congratulations, but my mind was already racing ahead to what came next. As I drove home that evening, the promotion letter on the passenger seat, I made the call that would change everything. Joseph. I said when he picked up. What now, Maria? I'm watching the game with Dad. His tone was already annoyed, already dismissive. This was my husband, the man who was supposed to love and support me, and he couldn't even be bothered to hide his irritation when I called. I need to tell you something. I got fired today. The silence that followed felt like an eternity. I held my breath, hoping against hope that he would surprise me. That he would ask if I was okay, offer to come pick me up, tell me we'd figure it out together. Dad, he laughed. That's good for you because you've been acting like you're better and bigger than someone else. But come to think of it, I won't have you become a liability in the house. Get another job. How do you expect me to pay bills and take care of my parents and siblings? The words shattered something inside me. Not just my heart but my illusions. Every excuse I'd made for him, every time I'd told myself he was just stressed or tired or going through a rough patch. All of it crumbled in that moment. Joseph, Look, Maria, I don't have time for your drama right now. Figure it out. The line went dead. I sat in my car in the parking lot of a grocery store, staring at my phone. Around me, people went about their normal lives, unaware that mine had just imploded. A mother pushed a cart with a crying toddler. An elderly man helped his wife out of their car. Normal people living normal lives with people who actually cared about them. My phone buzzed with a text from Joseph. Don't come home crying. The family doesn't need to see you like this. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about Joseph. This was about all of them. They saw me as a resource, not a person. A bank account with legs. I started my car and drove home, my mind already working on the plan that would give them exactly what they deserved. The house was buzzing with activity when I walked through the front door. I could hear voices in the kitchen, the clink of dishes, the sound of the television in the den. Normal family sounds that had once comforted me but now felt like the soundtrack to my own exploitation. I took a deep breath and walked into the kitchen, where Jacqueline was serving dinner to Isaac, Tony, and Angela. Joseph was nowhere to be seen. Maria. Angela jumped up from her chair. Perfect timing. I was just telling Mom and Dad about the flowers for the wedding. The florist says if we book by next week we can get a discount. That's nice, I said quietly, setting my purse on the counter. Jacqueline looked up from her plate. You look tired, dear. Rough day at work. This was it. The moment of truth. Actually, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, I got fired today. The silence that followed was deafening. Angela's fork clattered against her plate. Isaac Tony's newspaper rustled as he set it down. Jacqueline's mouth fell open. Fired. Angela's voice was shrill. What do you mean fired? I mean I don't have a job anymore, I said, letting my voice crack slightly. They said they were downsizing. I'm sorry. But what about my wedding? Angela's face had gone pale. What about the venue deposit? What about the flowers? Not, are you okay? Not what happened. Not, how can we help? Just immediate concern about how my supposed job loss would affect her wedding. Isaac Tony cleared his throat. Now Maria, I'm sure this is just a temporary setback. You'll find something else. But what if she doesn't? Angela's voice was rising toward panic. What if she can't find anything that pays as well? What about my dress? What about the catering? Jacqueline stood up abruptly. Where's Joseph? He needs to know about this immediately. She hurried out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with Isaac, Tony, and Angela. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken accusations. This is a disaster, Angela muttered, pulling out her phone. I need to call the wedding planner. Maybe we can postpone some of the payments. Isaac Tony folded his newspaper with sharp, precise movements. Maria, I hope you understand the position this puts the family in. We've all been counting on your income. I know, I whispered. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't pay bills, he said coldly. Sorry doesn't cover Angela's wedding expenses or our living costs. You need to start looking for another job immediately. And it needs to pay at least as much as your old one. The cruelty of it took my breath away. Here I was, supposedly devastated and unemployed, and his only concern was how quickly I could replace the income they'd all become dependent on. Joseph appeared in the doorway, his face dark with anger. Behind him, Jacqueline hovered like a storm cloud. Is it true? He demanded. You got fired? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Unbelievable. He ran his hands through his hair. Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you know how much we depend on your salary? Joseph, I started, but he cut me off. No, Maria. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You got too comfortable, too cocky. You probably mouthed off to the wrong person or pushed too hard for that promotion you were always talking about. That's not what happened, I said weakly. Then what did happen? His voice was getting louder. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you sabotaged our entire family's financial security. Angela started crying. Actual tears streaming down her face as she clutched her phone. My wedding is ruined. Everything is ruined. Now, Isaac Tony said, patting her shoulder. We'll figure something out. Maria will find another job. But what if she doesn't? Angela sobbed. What if no one will hire her? What if she's blacklisted or something? The conversation continued around me, but I barely heard it. They were talking about me like I wasn't even there, discussing my future and their expectations as if I were a malfunctioning appliance they needed to repair or replace. Joseph pulled out his phone. I'm calling my brother. Maybe Giovanni knows someone who's hiring. Good idea, Jacqueline said. And Maria should start applying for jobs tonight. Every minute she waits is money we're losing. I excused myself and went upstairs to our bedroom, closing the door behind me. Through the thin walls, I could hear them continuing their discussion, their voices rising and falling as they planned my life without me. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled the promotion letter from my purse. Senior Vice President of Operations. A 60% salary increase. Stock options. A corner office with a view of the entire city. Everything they thought I'd lost, I'd actually gained. But they didn't know that yet. And by the time they found out, it would be too late for all of them. The next morning I woke up to find Joseph already dressed and pacing the bedroom, his phone pressed to his ear. "Yes, I understand the timeline," he was saying. "But this is an emergency situation. My wife just lost her job and we need to know our options." I lay still, pretending to be asleep, listening to his conversation. "Divorce." He paused. "How quickly could we file? And what about asset protection?" My blood turned to ice. He was talking to a lawyer. About divorcing me. Less than 12 hours after I'd told him I was fired. "I see. And if we file before she finds another job, that would affect the alimony calculation?" "Good. Yes, I'll call you back." He hung up and turned to find me watching him. "Oh, you're awake." He didn't even have the grace to look embarrassed. "Who were you talking to?" I asked, though I already knew. "Just exploring our options. Maria, we need to be realistic about this situation. If you can't find another job that pays what you were making, we might need to make some difficult decisions." "Difficult decisions?" He sat on the edge of the bed but didn't touch me. "Look, I've been thinking about this all night. Maybe this is a sign. Maybe we're not as compatible as we thought we were." I stared at him, this man I'd loved for 8 years, this man I'd supported and provided for and built a life with. He was talking about ending our marriage because he thought I couldn't pay his bills anymore. "You want a divorce," I said flatly. "I want what's best for both of us. And honestly, Maria, you've been different lately. Distant. Always focused on work. Maybe this is an opportunity for both of us to start fresh." The manipulation was breathtaking. He was making my supposed job loss about my character flaws, about our relationship problems, about anything except the fact that he was abandoning me the moment he thought I might become a financial burden. "I see," I said quietly. "I'm glad you understand. I think if we handle this maturely, we can both move on without too much drama." "Drama?" He was worried about drama. "What about your family?" I asked. "Your parents, Angela's wedding?" Joseph shrugged, and the casual indifference in that gesture cut deeper than any of his words. "They'll understand. Family comes first, and right now I need to think about my future. I can't be responsible for supporting someone who can't contribute equally to the household. Someone who can't contribute equally." I repeated his words slowly, tasting the bitterness of them. "Joseph, I've been the primary breadwinner for our entire marriage. I've paid for this house, your parents' living expenses, Angela's wedding, your father's medical bills." "That was then," he interrupted. "This is now. And now you're unemployed with no prospects." I sat up in bed, studying his face. There was no remorse there, no sadness about ending our marriage. Just cold calculation. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. "Planning what?" "The divorce. How long have you been waiting for an excuse?" His jaw tightened. "Don't be dramatic, Maria. This isn't about excuses. It's about reality." But I could see the truth in his eyes. This wasn't a sudden decision born from my supposed job loss. This was something he'd been considering for a while, and my fake firing had just given him the perfect opportunity. "I'll stay in the guest room until we figure out the arrangements," he said, standing up. "I think it's better if we keep some distance while we work through the details." After he left, I sat alone in our bedroom, surrounded by the remnants of a life I'd thought was real. The photos on the dresser showed us at various family gatherings, vacations I'd paid for, celebrations I'd funded. In every picture I was smiling, believing I was part of something meaningful. I'd been such a fool. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "Congratulations again on the promotion. When would you like to schedule the announcement to the team?" I stared at the message, then typed back, "Can we wait a few days? I have some personal matters to handle first." "Of course. Take all the time you need." If only she knew what I was really planning. That evening, Joseph called a family meeting. We gathered in the living room like we had so many times before, but this time the atmosphere was heavy with tension and unspoken accusations. Jacqueline sat in her usual chair, her hands folded primly in her lap. Isaac Tony occupied the recliner, his newspaper abandoned on the side table. Angela perched on the edge of the couch, her eyes red from crying. Joseph stood near the fireplace like he was delivering a corporate presentation. "I've asked everyone here because we need to discuss the situation," he began. "Maria's job loss affects all of us, and we need to make some difficult decisions." "What kind of decisions?" Isaac Tony asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Joseph glanced at me, then back at his family. Maria and I have decided that it might be best if we took some time apart to figure things out. Angela gasped. You're getting divorced? We're exploring our options, Joseph said carefully. The truth is, this situation has made us realize that we might not be as compatible as we thought. I watched their faces as he spoke. Jacqueline's expression was carefully neutral, but I caught the flash of satisfaction in her eyes. Isaac Tony nodded slowly as if this was a reasonable business decision. Angela looked between Joseph and me, her face a mask of confusion and panic. But what about my wedding? She whispered. That's something we'll need to discuss, Joseph said. Obviously, our financial situation has changed. Changed how? Angela's voice was rising. Maria, you'll still help with the wedding, right? Even if you and Joseph are having problems. All eyes turned to me. They were waiting for me to reassure them, to promise that even if my marriage was ending, I'd still fund their dreams and support their lifestyle. I don't know, I said quietly. I don't even know if I'll be able to find another job. Of course you will, Jacqueline said briskly. You're educated, experienced. Someone will hire you. But what if they don't? I pressed. What if I have to take a job that pays less? What if I can't afford to help with the wedding or contribute to household expenses? The silence that followed was deafening. I could see them all doing the math in their heads, calculating how my reduced circumstances would affect their own lives. Well, Isaac Tony said finally, I suppose we'd all have to make adjustments. What kind of adjustments? I asked. He shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps Angela could have a smaller wedding. Maybe Jacqueline and I could look into senior housing options. Senior housing? Jacqueline's voice was sharp. Isaac, we can't afford senior housing. Our retirement savings won't cover those costs. Then maybe it's time to consider other options, Joseph said. Maybe it's time for everyone to become more self-sufficient. Angela started crying again. This is a nightmare. My whole life is falling apart because Maria couldn't keep her job. Angela, I said softly, I didn't choose to get fired. Didn't you? Joseph's voice was cold. Didn't you choose to be difficult at work? Didn't you choose to push for that promotion instead of being grateful for what you had? The accusation hung in the air like poison. He was rewriting history, making my supposed job loss my fault, my character flaw, my failure. I worked hard, I said. I did everything I was supposed to do. Apparently not hard enough, Jacqueline said with a sniff. I looked around the room at these people I'd called family for 8 years. Not one of them had asked how I was feeling. Not one had offered comfort or support. They were all too busy calculating how my misfortune would affect their own lives. I think, I said slowly, that maybe Joseph is right. Maybe we do need to make some changes. What do you mean? Angela asked. I mean, maybe it's time for everyone to take responsibility for their own lives. Maybe it's time for me to stop enabling all of you. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Enabling. Isaac Tony's voice was dangerous. Maria, I think you're being a bit dramatic. Am I? When was the last time any of you contributed to this household? When was the last time you paid for your own expenses? We contribute in other ways, Jacqueline said stiffly. I cook, I clean. You cook for everyone except me. You clean around my work schedule. And you've never paid a single bill. Maria, Joseph's voice was warning. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. I stood up, looking down at all of them. You want to know the truth? I'm glad this happened. I'm glad I lost my job because it's shown me exactly what you all think of me. What we think of you. Angela's voice was shrill. We think you're family. No, I said quietly. You think I'm a bank account. And now that you think the account is empty, you're all ready to throw me away. I walked toward the stairs, then turned back. Joseph, you can have your divorce. But don't expect me to make it easy for you. And don't expect me to keep funding this family's lifestyle while you're trying to destroy my life. As I climbed the stairs, I could hear them talking in urgent, hushed voices. Planning, calculating, strategizing. They thought they were so clever, positioning themselves for a future without me. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove across town to the office of Regina Hendricks, the divorce attorney I'd consulted 3 weeks earlier. Regina was a sharp woman in her 50s with silver hair and eyes like steel. She'd built her reputation destroying cheating husbands and protecting women's assets. Maria, she said as I settled into the chair across from her desk. I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon. Plans have changed, I said, pulling out my phone. I need you to listen to something. I played her the recording of my phone call with Joseph, his cruel laughter echoing in the quiet office. Then I played the recording I'd made of his conversation with the lawyer, his casual discussion of divorce and asset protection. Regina's expression grew darker with each word. When did you make these recordings? She asked. The first one was yesterday. The second was this morning. I've been documenting everything for weeks. Smart woman. She leaned back in her chair. And you said he doesn't know about your promotion? No one knows. I haven't told anyone at home. Good. Keep it that way for now. She pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. Here's what we're going to do. Your husband wants to file for divorce based on your supposed inability to contribute financially. We're going to let him. Let him. Oh yes. We're going to let him file first. Let him make his case about your reduced circumstances and his need to protect his assets. And then when he's committed to that narrative in court documents, we're going to reveal your promotion. I felt a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. What will that do? It will show the court exactly what kind of man your husband is. A man who abandons his wife the moment he thinks she's become a financial burden. A man who lies about his motivations and manipulates the legal system for his own gain. She continued writing, her pen moving quickly across the page. More importantly, it will affect the asset division. If he files claiming financial hardship and your inability to contribute, and then we prove that you're actually earning more than ever, the court will not look kindly on his deception. What about his family? They're all living in my house, using my resources. That's where this gets interesting. Regina looked up from her notes. You said they're all financially dependent on you? Completely. His parents have minimal retirement savings. His sister has no job. Joseph himself only works part-time at his friend's auto shop. And they're all pressuring you to continue supporting them even after the divorce? They expect me to fund Angela's wedding even if Joseph and I split up. Regina's smile was predatory. Perfect. We're going to document all of that. Every expectation, every demand, every assumption that you'll continue to be their personal ATM. And then we're going to make sure the court understands exactly how you've been exploited. She handed me a small recording device. I want you to keep documenting everything. Every conversation, every demand, every cruel comment. The more evidence we have of their true nature, the stronger our case becomes. What about the house? I bought it, but Joseph's name is on the deed. We'll deal with that. You have records of all the payments. Every single one. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance. I have 8 years of financial records showing that I've paid for everything. Excellent. And his family's living expenses. I have records of those too. Medical bills, car payments, credit card bills, even their groceries. I've been supporting all of them for years. Regina nodded approvingly. You've been thorough. That's going to serve you well. As I left her office, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Not just hope for escape, but hope for justice. Joseph and his family thought they could discard me the moment I became inconvenient. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Over the next few days, I threw myself into the role of the devastated, unemployed wife. I spent hours at the kitchen table with my laptop, pretending to search for jobs while actually coordinating with Regina and planning my next moves. The family's behavior grew more revealing by the day. Angela had postponed her dress fitting and canceled the cake tasting, but she made sure I knew it was my fault. I hope you're happy, she said one morning as I sat at the kitchen table. My dream wedding is turning into a nightmare because you couldn't keep your job. I'm sorry, I said, not looking up from my laptop screen. Sorry doesn't fix anything. Do you know how embarrassing this is? I have to call all my vendors and explain that my sister-in-law lost her job and can't pay for anything anymore. Jacqueline emerged from the laundry room with a basket of clothes. Angela, dear, perhaps you should consider a smaller celebration. Something more, modest. Modest? Angela's voice cracked. I've been planning this wedding for 2 years. I've already sent out invitations. I can't just change everything now. Well, what do you suggest? Isaac Tony asked from his recliner. Maria clearly can't afford the wedding you originally planned. They were talking about me like I wasn't sitting right there. Like I was a broken appliance they were trying to figure out how to replace. Maybe, Angela said slowly, Maria could take out a loan. Or use her credit cards. Just until she finds another job. I looked up from my laptop. Angela, I can't take on more debt when I don't have income. But it's my wedding, she wailed. This is supposed to be the most important day of my life. And it will be, Jacqueline said soothingly. We'll figure something out. Joseph appeared in the doorway dressed for work. His part-time job at the auto shop barely covered his personal expenses, but he acted like he was the family's financial savior. Any luck with the job search? He asked, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer. A few possibilities, I lied. But nothing concrete yet. Well, you need to try harder. I can't support this entire household on my salary. The irony was staggering. Joseph's salary wouldn't cover the utilities bill, let alone support anyone. But he was already positioning himself as the responsible one, the one who would have to carry the burden I was supposedly abandoning. I'm doing my best, I said quietly. Your best wasn't good enough to keep your job, he replied coldly. Maybe it's time to lower your standards. Take whatever you can get. After he left for work, I continued my performance, making fake phone calls to imaginary employers while the family discussed my future around me. She's going to have to take a significant pay cut, Isaac Tony said to Jacqueline. No one's going to pay her what she was making before, not after being fired. Then we'll all have to make sacrifices, Jacqueline replied. Though I don't know how much more we can cut back. They weren't cutting back on anything. They were planning to maintain their lifestyle while I scrambled to rebuild my career from nothing. The entitlement was breathtaking. That afternoon, Angela cornered me in the kitchen while I was making lunch. Maria, I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest. Okay. How much money do you have saved? In your personal accounts, I mean. I stared at her. Why? Because I'm wondering if you could use your savings to cover the wedding expenses. Just temporarily until you get back on your feet. Angela, I need my savings for living expenses. I don't know how long it will take me to find another job. But this is my wedding, she said as if that explained everything. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event. You can rebuild your savings later. And if I can't find a job that pays well? What if I need that money to survive? Her face hardened. You're being selfish, Maria. This family has always supported you and now when we need your help, you're thinking only about yourself. The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed. This family had never supported me. I had supported them financially and emotionally for 8 years. And now that they thought I couldn't anymore, they were calling me selfish for not bankrupting myself for Angela's wedding. I'll think about it, I said just to end the conversation. Don't think too long, she warned. I need to give the vendors an answer soon, or I'll lose all my deposits. That evening I sat in my car in the parking lot of a coffee shop, talking to Regina on the phone. They want me to use my savings to pay for the wedding, I told her. Perfect. Are you recording these conversations? Every single one. Good. The more evidence we have of their financial exploitation, the stronger our case becomes. How's Joseph handling the divorce proceedings? He filed yesterday. His lawyer is pushing for a quick settlement, claiming financial hardship. Of course he is. He wants to get out before you find another job and complicate his narrative. We're going to let him think he's winning, right up until the moment we reveal your promotion. When will that be? Soon. I want to wait until he's fully committed to his story in court. Let him dig his own grave a little deeper. As I drove home, I thought about the conversation I'd overheard that morning between Joseph and his father. They'd been discussing the house, talking about whether Joseph should try to keep it in the divorce. She can't afford the mortgage payments without her job, Isaac Tony had said. You might be able to get the house for almost nothing. That's what I'm hoping, Joseph had replied. My lawyer thinks we have a good chance, especially if she can't find work quickly. They were planning to take everything. The house I'd bought, the life I'd built, the security I'd provided for all of them. And they thought I was too broken and desperate to fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. ## Chapter 8. The Breaking Point. 2 weeks into my charade, the family's true nature had been fully exposed. Every conversation was recorded, every cruel comment documented, every expectation of continued financial support captured for posterity. But it was Angela's meltdown that finally pushed me to end the performance. I was in the kitchen pretending to review job listings, when she stormed in with her phone pressed to her ear. "No, you don't understand," she was saying to whoever was on the other end. "My sister-in-law lost her job. We need more time to make the payment." She hung up and turned to me, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "That was the wedding venue. They're threatening to cancel our contract if we don't pay the balance by Friday." "How much is the balance?" I asked, though I already knew. $25,000. Her voice cracked. "Maria, you have to help me. You have to find a way." "Angela, I've told you." "I don't care what you've told me," she screamed. "This is my wedding. Do you understand what that means? This is the most important day of my entire life and you're ruining it." Jacqueline hurried into the kitchen, drawn by the shouting. "What's wrong?" "The venue wants their money," Angela sobbed. "And Maria won't help." "Won't help or can't help?" Jacqueline asked, her eyes narrowing as she looked at me. "She has savings," Angela said. "She has credit cards. She could find a way if she really wanted to." "Is that true, Maria?" Jacqueline's voice was cold. "Do you have resources you're not telling us about?" I looked between them, these two women who had lived in my house, eaten my food and spent my money for years. They were looking at me like I was a criminal for not bankrupting myself for Angela's wedding. "I have some savings," I admitted. "But I need that money for..." "For what?" Angela interrupted. "For yourself. While my entire future is falling apart." "Your future isn't falling apart because of a wedding venue," I said quietly. "Yes, it is. Don't you understand? This wedding is everything to me. It's my dream, my perfect day, and you're destroying it because you're too selfish to help your own family." "Selfish." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Yes, selfish." Angela was crying now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. "We've all sacrificed for you over the years. We've supported you, encouraged you, been there for you. And now when we need you, you turn your back on us." The rewriting of history was breathtaking. When had they ever sacrificed for me? When had they ever supported me? I couldn't think of a single instance where any of them had put my needs before their own. "What sacrifices?" I asked. "What?" Angela looked confused. "What sacrifices have you made for me? When have you supported me?" "We've been your family. We've welcomed you, included you. You've lived in my house rent-free for 3 years. I've paid for your car, your insurance, your medical bills, your shopping trips. What exactly have you sacrificed?" Angela's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Jacqueline stepped forward, her face hard. "Maria, I think you're forgetting everything this family has done for you. We've provided you with a home, with love, with belonging. That's worth more than money. A home that I bought and pay for. Love that disappears the moment you think I can't fund your lifestyle. Belonging that's conditional on my bank account." "That's not true," Jacqueline said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it? Where was this love and belonging when Joseph called a lawyer the day after I told him I was fired? Where was it when you all started planning how to cut me out of your lives?" The kitchen fell silent. Angela had stopped crying, her face pale with shock. Jacqueline's mouth was pressed into a thin line. "We never said we wanted to cut you out," Angela whispered. "You didn't have to say it. Your actions said it for you." I stood up from the table, closing my laptop with a sharp snap. "You want to know the truth? I'm glad this happened. I'm glad I lost my job because it showed me exactly what you all think of me. I'm not your family. I'm your babe. And the moment you thought the money was gone, you were ready to throw me away." "Maria," Jacqueline started. "No. I'm done. I'm done pretending this is a family. I'm done enabling all of you. And I'm done being treated like a bank account instead of a human being." I walked toward the stairs, then turned back. "Angela, you want your dream wedding? Figure out how to pay for it yourself. Jacqueline, you want to keep living here? Start paying rent. And Joseph." I smiled coldly. "Joseph can have his divorce. But he's not getting anything else from me." As I climbed the stairs, I could hear them talking in urgent whispers. Planning, strategizing, trying to figure out how to salvage their comfortable lifestyle. They had no idea that their comfortable lifestyle was about to become a very expensive memory. Chapter 9. The Revelation. The next morning I called Regina and told her it was time. Are you sure? She asked. Once we reveal your promotion, there's no going back. I'm sure. I can't stand another day of this performance. All right. I'll file our response to Joseph's divorce petition today. And Maria? Make sure you're somewhere safe when the news breaks. This is going to get ugly. I spent the morning at work, finally allowing myself to enjoy my new office and my new title. My assistant brought me coffee and briefed me on the day's meetings. My team congratulated me on the promotion they'd just learned about. For the first time in weeks, I felt like myself again. At noon, I drove home for what I knew would be the last time as Joseph's wife. The house was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. I found them all gathered in the living room, their faces grim. Joseph was holding a stack of papers, his hands shaking slightly. Maria, he said when he saw me. We need to talk. About what? He held up the papers. About these. About the lies you've been telling us. My heart started racing, but I kept my expression neutral. What lies? Don't. His voice was dangerous. Don't you dare keep lying to us. I know about your promotion. I know about your new salary. I know you've been playing us for fools. Angela was crying again, but this time it was angry tears. How could you do this to us? How could you let us think you were fired when you actually got promoted? How did you find out? I asked. Your company called, Jacqueline said coldly. They wanted to schedule a photo shoot for the company newsletter. Something about featuring their new senior vice president. I almost smiled. Of all the ways for the truth to come out, I hadn't expected that one. So it's true. Isaac Tony's voice was barely controlled rage. You've been lying to us this entire time? Yes, I said simply. The admission hung in the air like a bomb. Angela's crying got louder. Joseph crumpled the papers in his fist. Why? He demanded. Why would you do something so cruel? Cruel. I laughed, and the sound was bitter even to my own ears. You want to talk about cruel? Let's talk about your reaction when you thought I was fired. Let's talk about how quickly you called a divorce lawyer. Let's talk about how none of you cared about my feelings, only about how my supposed job loss would affect your bank accounts. That's not, Angela started. That's exactly what happened. I tested you, all of you. I wanted to see what you'd do if you thought I couldn't support you anymore. And you all failed spectacularly. Joseph's face was red with anger. You manipulated us. You made us think. I made you show your true colors. And your true colors are ugly, Joseph. All of yours are. We're your family. Angela screamed. How could you test your own family? You're not my family. Family doesn't abandon each other the moment things get difficult. Family doesn't calculate the financial value of love. Family doesn't call divorce lawyers when their spouse loses a job. I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Joseph's conversation with his lawyer. His voice filled the room, cold and calculating as he discussed asset protection and alimony calculations. The silence that followed was deafening. You recorded me? Joseph's voice was barely a whisper. I recorded all of you. Every cruel comment, every selfish demand, every moment when you showed me exactly what I meant to you. Jacqueline stood up abruptly. This is unconseen. You've been manipulating us, lying to us. I've been documenting you. There's a difference. Documenting us for what? Isaac Tony asked. For the divorce proceedings. For the court case where Joseph is claiming financial hardship and my inability to contribute to the household. For the moment when the judge hears exactly what kind of people you all are. Joseph's face went white. You can't use those recordings in court. Actually, I can. I checked with my lawyer. As long as I'm a party to the conversation, I can record it. And I was a party to every single one. Angela was hyperventilating now, her breath coming in short gasps. This is insane. You're insane. We love you, Maria. We've always loved you. No, you haven't. You've loved my money. You've loved my willingness to support all of you without asking for anything in return. But you've never loved me. I walked to the stairs, then turned back one last time. Joseph, you wanted a divorce? You'll get one. But you won't get the house, you won't get alimony, and you won't get a penny of my money. Your family can find somewhere else to live, Angela can pay for her own wedding, and you can all learn what it's like to support yourselves for once. Maria, wait, Joseph started toward me. Don't you dare try to apologize now. Don't try to tell me you love me or that this was all a misunderstanding. I heard your true feelings loud and clear. All of you did. I climbed the stairs to pack my things, leaving them in the living room to contemplate the wreckage of their comfortable lives. Behind me, I could hear Angela sobbing and Joseph cursing. Jacqueline was trying to calm everyone down, but her voice was shaky with panic. They were finally understanding what they'd lost. Not just my money but their entire way of life. And it was too late to get any of it back. I moved out that afternoon, taking only my personal belongings and leaving behind 8 years of shared memories that now felt like lies. I'd already arranged to stay in a corporate apartment until I could find a permanent place. The calls started within hours. First Joseph, his voice desperate and pleading. "Maria, please. We need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding." Then Angela, crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Please don't do this to me. Please don't ruin my wedding. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry for everything." Jacqueline left a voicemail that was equal parts apology and accusation. "Maria, dear, I think we all said things we didn't mean. But surely you understand that we were just worried about the family's future. We can work this out." Even Isaac Tony called, his voice stiff with wounded pride. "Maria, I think you're being hasty. Perhaps we should all sit down and discuss this like adults." I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I forwarded all their messages to Regina, adding to the mountain of evidence that would soon be presented in court. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Joseph's lawyer had filed claiming financial hardship and my inability to contribute to the household. When Regina revealed my promotion and salary increase, along with the recordings of their reactions to my supposed firing, the entire case collapsed. "Your Honor," Regina said during the hearing, "Mr. Isaac filed for divorce within 24 hours of believing his wife had lost her job. The recordings clearly show that his concern was not for his wife's well-being, but for his own financial security." Joseph's lawyer tried to argue that the recordings were taken out of context, but the evidence was overwhelming. Joseph had abandoned me the moment he thought I couldn't support him. His family had treated me like a bank account rather than a person. And they'd all made it clear that their love was conditional on my ability to fund their lifestyle. The judge was not sympathetic. "Mr. Isaac," she said, her voice cold with disapproval, "you filed for divorce claiming financial hardship while your wife was actually earning more than ever before. You've wasted this court's time with false claims and manipulative tactics." Joseph tried to speak but the judge cut him off. "Furthermore, the evidence shows a pattern of financial exploitation by you and your family. Mrs. Aiden has been supporting not just you, but your parents and sister for years, receiving nothing in return but demands for more money." The asset division was swift and brutal. I kept the house since I'd paid for it entirely. I kept my retirement accounts, my savings and my investments. Joseph got his personal belongings and his car, which I'd also paid for but which the judge allowed him to keep out of basic fairness. "As for alimony," the judge continued, "given Mr. Isaac's demonstrated ability to work and his clear intention to abandon his wife during what he believed was a time of financial hardship, I see no reason why Mrs. Aiden should be required to continue supporting him." Joseph's face crumpled. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but there was nothing left to argue. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. The fallout was immediate and devastating for Joseph's family. Without my income, they couldn't afford to stay in the house. Joseph moved back in with his parents, who were forced to sell their retirement home and move into a small apartment. Angela's wedding was cancelled entirely when she couldn't make the venue payments. The humiliation was public and complete. Angela had to call all her friends and family to explain that the wedding was off. Jacqueline had to explain to her social circle why she was suddenly living in a tiny apartment instead of the beautiful suburban home she'd been bragging about for years. Joseph tried to get his job at the auto shop increased to full-time, but his friend's business was struggling and couldn't afford to pay him more. He ended up taking a second job at a grocery store, working nights to make ends meet. The irony wasn't lost on me. For the first time in years, they were all working to support themselves instead of relying on someone else's money. But the calls didn't stop. Angela called me crying every few days, begging me to reconsider helping with her wedding. "I know we made mistakes," she sobbed during one particularly pathetic call. "But I've learned my lesson. I'll be different, I promise." "Different how?" I asked. I'll get a job. I'll contribute to the family. I'll pay you back for everything." "Angela, you're 26 years old. You should have had a job years ago." I know. But I was planning my wedding," And Joseph said you didn't mind supporting the family. Joseph was wrong. I minded very much. I just didn't say anything because I thought you all cared about me. We do care about you. No, you don't. You care about my money. There's a difference. Jacqueline tried a different approach, appealing to my sense of family obligation. Maria, dear, I know we've had our differences, but surely you don't want to see Isaac, Tony, and me homeless. You're not homeless. You have an apartment. A tiny, cramped apartment in a terrible neighborhood. We're elderly, Maria. We need stability, comfort. Then you should have thought about that before you treated me like a bank account instead of a daughter-in-law. We never treated you that way. Jacqueline, you literally asked me to use my savings to pay for Angela's wedding after you thought I'd been fired. You wanted me to go into debt for a party. The silence on the other end of the line was telling. Joseph's calls were the most desperate. He'd gone from arrogant and dismissive to pleading and pathetic in a matter of weeks. Maria, please. I made a mistake. I was scared, I wasn't thinking clearly. But I love you. I've always loved you. You love my money, Joseph. You made that very clear. That's not true. Yes, I panicked when I thought you lost your job, but that's not true. Yes, I panicked when I thought you lost your job, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. You called a divorce lawyer within 12 hours, Joseph. You discussed asset protection and alimony calculations. That's not panic, that's calculation. I was trying to protect both of us. You were trying to protect yourself. From me. From the possibility that I might become a burden instead of a benefit. His voice cracked. Maria, please. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, we can work through this. There's nothing to work through. You showed me who you really are and I believe you. But the promotion, the money, we could have everything we ever wanted now. We could travel, buy a bigger house, start a family. There is no we, Joseph. You made sure of that when you abandoned me the moment you thought I couldn't pay your bills anymore. The most pathetic call came from Isaac Tony, who tried to appeal to my business sense. Maria, I've been thinking about your situation, and I believe we can come to a mutually beneficial arrangement. What kind of arrangement? Well, you're a successful businesswoman now. You understand investments, returns on capital. Think of supporting the family as an investment in your future security. I almost laughed. My future security? Yes. When Jacqueline and I pass away, you'll inherit everything. The family jewelry, our savings, our life insurance policies. And Angela will always be grateful for your help with her wedding. You'll have a family who loves and appreciates you. Isaac, your everything wouldn't cover a month of my mortgage payments. Your life insurance policies are minimal. And Angela's gratitude lasts exactly as long as my willingness to write checks. But family is about more than money. You're absolutely right. Family is about love, support, loyalty, and sacrifice. None of which any of you have ever shown me. That's not fair, Maria. We've always welcomed you into my own house that I paid for, to eat food I bought, while you all lived off my income and treated me like hired help. The conversation ended with him hanging up on me, but he called back an hour later to apologize and try a different approach. They were all trying different approaches now, cycling through guilt, manipulation, false promises, and outright begging. But it was too late. I'd seen their true faces and there was no going back. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was settling into my new life with a satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. My promotion had led to even greater opportunities. The company was expanding internationally, and I'd been asked to head up the European division. It would mean relocating to London for 2 years, with a salary that would make my current income look modest. I'd sold the house where I'd lived with Joseph and his family. Too many bad memories lingered in those rooms. Instead, I bought a sleek downtown condo with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the river. It was smaller than the suburban house, but it was entirely mine. The silence was golden. No one demanding money for weddings or medical bills or car payments. No one treating my success like their personal lottery win. No one making me feel guilty for working hard and earning my own way. I'd started dating again cautiously. A colleague had introduced me to Giovanni, a fellow executive who understood the demands of a high-powered career. He was divorced too, with his own hard-won wisdom about relationships and red flags. The thing about being financially independent, he said over dinner one evening, is that you never have to wonder if someone loves you for your money. When you can take care of yourself, You're free to choose relationships based on actual compatibility. It was a revelation I wished I'd had years earlier. The calls from Joseph's family had finally stopped, mostly because I'd changed my number and blocked them on social media. But occasionally news filtered back to me through mutual acquaintances. Joseph was still working 2 jobs, struggling to make ends meet in a studio apartment across town. He'd tried dating, but word had gotten around about the divorce proceedings and his treatment of me. Most women weren't interested in a man who'd abandoned his wife the moment he thought she couldn't support him financially. Angela had finally gotten a job at a retail store, but she was bitter about having to work for minimum wage instead of planning her dream wedding. She'd broken up with her fiancé after he realized she had no money and no prospects. Apparently he'd been as much of a gold digger as she was. Jacqueline and Isaac Tony were struggling in their small apartment. Isaac Tony's health was declining, and they couldn't afford the medical care he needed. They'd applied for government assistance, something they'd once looked down on when they were living comfortably off my income. I felt no satisfaction in their struggles, but I felt no guilt either. They'd made their choices and now they were living with the consequences. I was leaving my office building one evening when I saw him waiting by my car. Joseph looked older, thinner, worn down by months of working multiple jobs and living paycheck to paycheck. "Hello, Maria." "Joseph." I kept my voice neutral, professional. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to see you. To talk to you." "We have nothing to talk about." "Please. Just 5 minutes." I looked at him, this man I'd once loved, and felt nothing but pity. "Fine. 5 minutes." He took a shaky breath. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I've learned from my mistakes." "Have you?" "Yes. I've been working 2 jobs, supporting my family on my own. I understand now how hard it was for you, carrying all that financial responsibility." "Do you?" "I do. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything I said, everything I did. I was scared and stupid and I took you for granted." I studied his face, looking for any sign of genuine understanding. "What exactly are you sorry for, Joseph?" For not appreciating you. For taking your money for granted. For calling the lawyer so quickly. "You're sorry for taking my money for granted?" "Yes. I should have been more grateful." "Stop." I held up my hand. "You still don't get it, do you?" "What do you mean?" "You think this is about money. You think I'm angry because you took my financial support for granted. But that's not what this is about at all." He looked confused. "Then what?" "This is about love, Joseph. This is about the fact that when you thought I was at my lowest point, when you thought I was devastated and unemployed and needed your support, you abandoned me. You didn't offer comfort or encouragement or partnership. You offered divorce papers. But I was scared. So was I. I was supposedly fired from my job, facing financial ruin, and instead of having a husband who would stand by me and help me figure it out, I had a husband who saw me as a liability to be discarded." The words hung between us in the evening air. Around us, other people were leaving their offices, heading home to families who actually loved them. "I would never do that again," he said quietly. "You're right. You won't. Because you'll never have the opportunity. Maria, please. I know I don't deserve another chance, but you don't. And more importantly, I don't want to give you one. But we were good together. We had 8 years. We had 8 years of me supporting you and your family while you all took me for granted. 8 years of me believing I was part of a family when I was really just a bank account with feelings. That's not true. It is true. And the proof is in how quickly you all turned on me the moment you thought the money was gone." Joseph's shoulders sagged. "What can I do? How can I make this right?" "You can't. Some things can't be fixed, Joseph. Some betrayals are too deep, too fundamental. You showed me that your love was conditional and I can never trust you again. So that's it? 8 years of marriage and you're just throwing it all away." "I'm not throwing anything away. You already threw it away when you chose money over love, convenience over commitment." I walked toward my car, then turned back. "Joseph, I hope you learn from this. I hope you become a better person, a better partner for whoever comes next. But that person won't be me." As I drove away, I saw him in my rearview mirror, standing alone in the parking lot. He looked lost, broken, finally understanding what he'd given up. But it was too late for understanding. Too late for apologies. Too late for second chances. I had a new life to build, and it didn't include anyone who saw me as a bank account instead of a human being. I'm writing this from my office in London, where I've been heading the European division for 18 months now. The view from my window shows the Thames winding through the city, and I never get tired of watching the boats navigate the ancient river. Giovanni and I are engaged now, planning a small wedding next spring. He proposed during a weekend in Paris, and when I said yes, his first concern was whether I was happy, not how much the wedding would cost or what it would mean for his financial future. It's amazing how different love feels when it's genuine. I received a letter last month from Angela. She tracked down my London address somehow, probably through my former company. The letter was full of apologies and updates about the family's struggles. Isaac Tony had passed away from a heart attack, and they couldn't afford a proper funeral. Jacqueline was in a nursing home, her care paid for by Medicaid. Joseph was still working multiple jobs, still single, still struggling. Angela was married now to a man she'd met at her retail job. They'd had a courthouse wedding with no reception, no flowers, no dream venue. She was pregnant with their first child and worried about how they'd afford childcare. The letter ended with a plea for reconciliation. "I know we hurt you," she wrote, "but we're family. Surely that means something. Surely you can find it in your heart to forgive us." I read the letter twice, then filed it away without responding. Family does mean something. It means love without conditions, support without calculations, loyalty that doesn't depend on bank account balances. It means standing by each other during the hard times, not just the profitable ones. Joseph and his family had taught me what family wasn't. Giovanni and the life we're building together are teaching me what it could be. Sometimes I think about the woman I was 2 years ago, working 18-hour days to support people who saw her as a resource rather than a person. I feel sorry for her, but I'm also grateful to her. Her sacrifice, her pain, her willingness to test the people she loved, all of it led me to this moment. I'm successful beyond my wildest dreams, in love with a man who values me for who I am rather than what I can provide, and free from the burden of supporting people who never appreciated the gift they'd been given. The test I gave Joseph and his family revealed their true nature. But it also revealed mine. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, braver than I believed, and worthy of love that doesn't come with a price tag. That's a lesson worth every moment of pain it took to learn. As I finish writing this, the sun is setting over London, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Tomorrow Giovanni and I are flying to Scotland for a long weekend, just because we want to see the Highlands together. It's a simple pleasure, but it's mine. No one is calculating the cost or expecting me to pay for their dreams too. No one is treating my happiness as secondary to their own needs. For the first time in years, I'm living for myself. And it feels like the sweetest revenge of all.